Brad Johnson here from johnson.audio, and today we are going to talk about Pro Tools Beat Detective. This is going to be a full how-to guide to making your drums sound like a professional. Now, I have done drum editing for some major productions, and this is exactly how I was taught, and I still believe is the best way to edit drums in Pro Tools using Beat Detective. Now, this is going to be a little bit more in-depth than some of the tutorials that I've seen out there, because a lot of times with the tutorials that I've seen, they show you how to set up your trigger points, make the selection, quantize the beats to grid, and then make your edits, and then they call it good to go. Now, I believe that this is probably a 75% way to do it. I believe that there's some more things that can be done to make your drums sound just even tighter and even more professional. And you are going to learn it now. It's going to be awesome. I'm very excited to show this to you. And here we go. So first things that we're going to look at here is I'm just going to talk about transients, because if you're brand new to this, looking at a transient can be really confusing. You don't really know what you're looking at. You don't really know what the waveform represents visually. And so I just want to kind of break this down for you real quick, just so that way we know exactly what we're looking at when I talk about transients and you're looking at me do this editing, because they're always going to look different. It's just kind of depending on how the engineer recorded it and just so many different things. So you need to kind of know some basics just to know what you're looking at. So as you go to edit your own drums, you're able to do it confidently. So I'm zooming in here to the first kick. We'll blow it up a little bit just so you kind of get an idea. So here's the waveform itself. This right here is actually the kick drum hitting. And you can see right here, this is going to be the very front of the transient. So this is the very front of the hit. When it comes to a kick in, it's very easy to see because the beater's right against the head. There's very little time between when the sound hits and when it hits the microphone. But now if you go down here to the kick out, you can see that it's a little bit delayed. I can see right here that this part is going to be bleed, and then right here is the front hit of the transient. And you can see that it's definitely a little bit delayed from the kick in, and that's totally fine. That's totally normal, because the sound is going to take a little bit longer to get to that kick out microphone. So as we continue to edit later, I'm going to explain how this is totally a normal thing. We do not want to change this relationship as we start moving stuff around. That is very, very important. It's also very important that we do not move around stuff that's like in the overheads or in the ride cymbals or in the hi-hat. Like all this stuff here, as you see if we zoom in, again, you can see how delayed it is from this first hit. There's this, but that is totally normal. That is exactly how it should be, because these overhead mics are far up above the drum kit, and they shouldn't be lined up right at the top of the beat, because that's just not natural. It's just not the way it works. It's going to mess with the phase relationship of everything. So we need to make sure that all these microphones are staying in place naturally how they were recorded when we start editing drums. And I will show you exactly what all that means and how we do that as we move forward. And so here's something that's really interesting that I'm seeing from the kick in and our kick sub microphone. And this is going to be a little bonus for you because it's here and it's a problem. So this is a little bit off the Beat Detective thing, but this is a phase problem. Look at this right here. You can see that the hit on the front of this transient and the hit on the front of this transient, this one's going up and this one's going down. But these are working together. It looks like somehow this kick sub mic is somehow pushed forward. I do not understand how that would work, but right now I'm not going to worry about it because this is the way these files were given to me. I can see that this is totally 100% out of phase. This is going up while this is going down. This is going to create phase problems. I'm going to show you right now what that's going to sound like and how this affects the recording in itself. And this is something very important for you young engineers and serious engineers, advanced engineers, to take into consideration when you are mixing music, because sometimes you might hear stuff, it sounds thin, it sounds weird, and you reach for an EQ, and really all you need to do is reach for some kind of plugin that will flip the phase. So listen to this here. So that's the recording as is, and I'm going to pull up this plugin, and we are going to flip the phase. I'm using Little Labs in between phase. You can use any plugin that has a phase flip. A lot of EQs and stuff out there have it. So we're going to turn this on, and now listen to the difference. Listen to the full end coming back in, and listen to the punch. You're going to hear a lot more of it. Again, without. Oh, it's so thin and gross. So much better. So that's just a little bonus for you, and it's a good way to check your phase. You can just obviously pull out, if something sounds a little thin and sounds a little weird, you can pull out a plug-in and flip the phase and see if it sounds better. Or if you're just like me right now, I just saw that was flipped out. So I'm just going to fix that, and there's a little bonus. So we are going to go ahead and bring this back. And so a few things we're going to do now before we start getting into editing. We want to set up our session to make sure that it is as flowy as we possibly can make it. So the way I was zooming in and zooming out there was hitting the R button and the T button. R zooms out, T zooms in at little incremental levels. If you're working and it's not doing it for you, it's because you have this little AZ button over here turned off. So make sure to toggle that on, and you'll be able to use that function. Another good way to zoom in and zoom out quickly is to use the numeric pad on your keyboard, and you can then zoom in and zoom out in certain frames easily. And you can set that up just by using these little arrows up here. You just go to where you want, and you can click on it, and it'll save that setting for you. That can be really helpful when you're trying to edit this entire piece and you need to zoom out real quick or zoom in and kind of mess with the tracks. So that's a quick little setup tip for you. And now what we're going to do is we're going to group together some of these tracks, so that way when we start editing, like I showed you before with the transients, we keep them together and we keep all the microphones phase related correctly. So what we're going to do is we're going to group together the kicks. So I'm just going to go ahead and highlight the kicks, hit Command G. We got these kicks over here. I'm going to create the kicks group just like that. And now we're going to go ahead and we want to group together everything else. So the snares, the toms, hi-hat, ride cymbal, overheads. We're going to go ahead and hit Command G again to open up the groups window, and I'm just going to put snares, toms, overhead. And then we have those together. And then I'm going to do one more group with everything. And I'm just going to put all drums. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I know there's an all button here already, but if I were to be doing this in a session with a bunch of other instruments, if I have that all in there, and as I start to move stuff around, it'll grab all the other tracks, and I do not want to do that. So I'm just creating an all drums group. Right now, obviously, I don't have anything else, so I could use it, but for the sake of being thorough and just making sure that you understand why I did that, that is why. You want to make sure that you're not moving around basses and guitars and stuff later if you're doing this in a session. So I'm going to click off the all drums because right now I do not want that. So now we have everything set up. We are ready to edit. We know a little bit about transients. We understand the phase relation of things and why it's important to keep it all together. And now it's time to make your drums sound like your drummer was the most amazing drummer on the planet. And your drummer should be the most amazing drummer on the planet. That is a little thing that you definitely need a good performance. Editing bad performances is, I guess you could make a drummer sound like they're playing on, but a good performance is going to make or break your recording anyway. I've done it where I've tried to record drums myself. I'm not that great of a drummer, and then I edited myself, and everything was on time, but it just sounded wooden because I didn't know how to play that well. And so performance will always come through. And this drummer played very, very well. So let's just take a quick listen to this track. As you can hear, the performance is great. We're going to zoom in a little bit, and you can see it looks like there might have been a little beat detective happening on this track already. But even like right here, you can see how this is very much rushing. So you can just kind of take a look at the grid line here, and you can start to see that these transients aren't fully on. Right here, it's a major rush. And this is a big problem, actually. So it does look like that maybe there was a little bit of beat detective already on this. I could tell this from the very beginning when I looked at this transient. You can see if you zoom all the way in, it's right on the 1. It's pretty much dead on, and the chances of him actually hitting dead on like that is very, very unlikely. So there probably was a little bit of beat detective, but here's a good example of why in other tutorials that I've seen, I've noticed that I noticed that people just kind of place triggers and they just say, okay, I got a trigger on it, and they don't even really look at it, and they just slice it and they move it, and they don't actually think about the fact that Pro Tools it's really only as good as the user. It's going to throw up stuff, and it's not always going to be accurate. So we want to make sure that things are accurate, and this is going to be a little bit more time consuming, but it's going to make sure that your edits and your edit points are great, because it's going to be one of those things where I'll just show you. We'll see how lucky we get. We're going to get into this. So we're going to highlight. I'm just going to do this one section. I'm not going to do the entire song, but I know this section has both the kick, the snare. It has some toms, and it also has kick over snare, tom over snare. So that way I can show you everything I'm talking about and how to do this. And this is exactly how you do it through the entire song. So we're going to highlight this. We're going to go up to the event, open up Beat Detective. We want to be over here in clip separation. And then here's another thing that's very important. We want to look at contains certain notes. So right now my grid is set to 16th notes because this is a 16th note pattern, especially when you hear that snare. It's definitely rocking along. I'm not going to have to edit every single hit. We're only looking for the major hits, but I can see that I would probably am going to want to edit this 16th note. If I were just doing just the major hits, we could get away with going to the grid, having on 8th notes, and just hitting the kick and the snares. You can see that the grid line works for it, but with this right here, I want to make sure that when I'm editing, I want that 16th note to come through. So I want to be able to see that grid line. And so we want to make sure it contains 16th notes. This is going to be very important when you're setting your triggers. Now, I highlighted my section that I wanted to do. We're going to capture the selection. We want to make sure we hit that and then hit analyze. And now Pro Tools is going to look at all the different transients in here, and it's going to start placing triggers. Now we're looking at the triggers, and I'm going to do a little thing here real quick. I'm actually going to just shrink. I'm going to shrink up these kick out and kick sub just because I don't want it. I'm going to blow up the snare top and the kick just so I can see those, because those are going to be the main things that we're going to be placing triggers on right now. So again, with the snare top, snare bottom, snare top, we always want to trigger to snare top because the snare bottom again is going to have a little bit of a pushback on its just the sound. So it's going to be a little delayed, and so we want to make sure we're editing to the snare top. So we can look that it did a pretty good job here placing triggers. We're looking at it. It's got triggers in pretty much everywhere that I want, and if you slide this slider around, you're going to get more triggers. We just want to get it to where we feel like it's lining up with the kick. We got some snares, but not all the snares because I don't want to do every little roll. I want to keep this performance as natural as possible, so I'm not going to time that. I want to kind of keep that natural feel. I only want the major hits to be on grid. It's very important. We don't want to just take every hit and put it on grid and then it kind of loses the feel. This is how to keep things transparent and organic. So that looks good to me. We have good amount of triggers. There are a few missing, so we can just kind of go ahead and throw in there. Got to throw in here just because, and it looks like other than that, right here, there's a tom hit, so it didn't get there. So we're just kind of going through and just throwing down some triggers to where it may have missed it. This is going to be a very interesting thing right here that we want to keep in mind, and I'll explain it later. We'll see if it gives us any problems, but for now, don't worry about it. All right, so we have all of our triggers set, and this is where I feel like a lot of other tutorials kind of miss the mark. They'll be like, okay, we got our trigger set, now we're going to separate it. You know, they'll go, okay, separate. No, we don't want to do that. I'm undoing that because guess what? Some of these triggers are probably not going to be where they need to be. So we're going to zoom in on this kick, and you can see that this trigger point is right at the front of the transient. That's perfect. That is exactly where we want that trigger to be. Now, when it comes to stuff like the snare, you can see that this trigger point is actually away. It's further in than where the transient hits. The transient hits right here, but this trigger point is right here. This is going to create a problem because now when we make the edit, it's going to edit and cut the transient off. So we actually want to move that transient, or move this trigger point to the beginning of that transient. And this is hugely important, and this is something I feel like is so overlooked. We do not need this one. We're going to get rid of this. So you hold Option and click it to delete it. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look. So we're going to go through. Again, it's a little early. That's like milliseconds. It really doesn't matter. But we're going to go through here and go through every kick first. We're just going to check them. See right here. This is so... It's going to cut off the front. It's so bad. We have to move that. If you want to be really in it, you can zoom in like crazy. If you want to be really precise, it's not necessary, but if you really want to do that, you can. And we move forward. We're going to take a look at all the kicks in this. This right here, we'll zoom in. That's actually really good. We move on. So this is why I'm not doing the whole song, because this can become really, really time consuming, really, really fast. And I know that, some people want to move through this stuff quickly, and I get it, but, I think that recording is all about the details, every part of it, and all the details add up. So this is just part of it. This is part of production, guys. It's not fun, it's not glamorous, it's not sexy, but it is very, very important. So we look at that. So all the kicks are looking good to me. Now we're going to go back through. We're going to do it again for the snares. We're going to look. We already touched that one, so that's fine. You could also use tab to transient. I never really like to do that because I kind of feel like it just skips around and I don't really know where I'm at. So I like to just kind of go by. This might be kind of the snail's pace, but, you do whatever works for you. This is what's always worked for me. And again, I'm going a little slower than I normally would, just because I want to make sure that we are being as thorough as possible. I'm going to edit this one just to give you an example of something that might happen here. And it also is an example of why you need to have your grid mark set. So this is perfect. So if you were to have, it contains eighth notes, or your grid's off, it's not going to allow you to put trigger points too close together, because it's trying to prevent you from, if you're saying that you're trying to edit only eighth notes or quarter notes, it's trying to prevent you from doing 16th notes, and just like the way that Pro Tools works. So sometimes what will happen is it'll just like the trigger point, like right here, I can't bring this trigger point any closer to this, and that is just something to be aware of. If you're having that problem consistently with a bunch of edit points, it's because of that. And so you have to go back through here and change that. So we're just going to keep going, and just bear with me here. We're almost through this part, and then we get to the fun stuff. So as you can see, this trigger is not lining up to the beginning of this transient. You can see, though, with all this bleed, that the transient hits, and obviously this is going to be hard for Pro Tools. Pro Tools isn't perfect. It's not going to be like, yeah, I know exactly where every transient is, so you just have to make sure that you're going through and checking it. This right here looks like it could be, that's probably, it's weird because it looks like it would be bleed from the snare hit, but it's in front of it. So this might be a kick, like a ghost kick. So we should probably listen to it and see if these are ghost kicks, because this might actually affect. It's just interesting. It would be, normally bleed would come up. Well, we'll look at it later. So I'm just going to assume that it's bleed for now. But if it's a ghost kick, then we might want to fix it, and I'll show you how to do that. Sometimes ghost kicks, it's a little editing magic and voodoo that we do to that, but right now let's not worry about it. we go. This one, move, get in line. Keep those as they are. This right here, am I guessing this is my tom? So we're going to go look down here. It's a tom hit. You can see the way the transient starts. Line that up with the tom because there's no kick here, but now we do have that kick, and we looks like we have another low tom hit. So this is where we're going to have that tom over, or kick over tom scenario, and now we have this. Cool. These ones we're not going to worry about because it's just, well, we can do it. Why not? Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of these. I don't want them. So now we have gone through and we have placed all of our triggers right on the beginning of the transients and all these hits. So now when we do our edits, it's actually going to be where we want those. When we quantize, it's going to actually quantize the front of the transient to the grid instead of making it rush or making it, too late if you were just to throw triggers down and not pay attention to it. This is a little more time consuming, but it makes a huge difference. Now, before we hit separate on this part of the track, there's a trigger pad right here. And I have it for 25 milliseconds, so it's actually going to make the cut 25 milliseconds before the actual trigger point. If it's at 0, what's going to happen is the edit is going to happen right at the front of the transient, and you're risking cutting off the front of the transient and creating kind of almost like a pop sound when you edit it. You can create like an edit sound that you want to avoid. So just set this, reasonably. I always do 25 milliseconds. Just set it so that way when you make the edit, it will give you a little bit of a pad. That way when you go to your fades and stuff, you're not cutting off the front of your transient and then creating problems for yourself down the line. So just think about that. So now we are going to go to separate. And as you can see, when you hit separate, you create your edits. And now we have our edits. And so what we're going to do is we're going to hit Command 0, which is going to quantize everything to the grid. Now, it looks like we might have a bit of, so we have a little bit of these gaps, which is fine. We're going to go through and fix that. But the first thing we're going to want to do is, so we can go to Edit Smoothing, Fill Gaps, Capture Selection, Smooth. So this will kind of just bring it out so that way we don't have those big fat gaps from the moving and the quantizing. And now what we want to do is just make sure that we at least didn't, so sometimes what will happen if stuff is really off the grid is that when you go to quantize your audio, it might actually move to the wrong bar and then everything's all off and all whacked out. And so we want to make sure that didn't happen. So we're just going to listen back to what we did without any crossfade. So you might get pops and stuff from the editing, but that's okay right now. I'm not worried about that. I just want to make sure that everything quantized correctly. So that all sounded fine to me. All the kicks are on, snare sounds good. So now we can move on to the next part, which is going to be, we are actually going to not do the crossfades yet because now we have all of our snares, we have our kicks all on grid. So this is where a lot of other tutorials I've seen out there will say, okay, just smooth it out, or fill in your crossfades and you're good to go, which is 75% of your work. We want to go the whole 100% because we are audio professionals here, or we want to be audio professionals, and we want to make sure that we're being thorough and we're doing as best of a job as possible and we're serving the song. So we are going to go ahead and learn how to do kick over snare. And so we're going to look at this spot right here. We're going to zoom in. So you can see that we have, where is that spot? This right here. We have a snare hit. You can see it right here. So we have to make sure that we turn our groups back on. You can see the snare hit right here. And we want to make sure that this snare hit now is going to line up with this hit. Because if we listen here real close, it kind of there's just, you can see that the snare, it's a flam, so it's not going to sound as tight. And just bear with me here, you'll hear it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click the pointer finger of the smart tool, the very front of this transient, and we're going to scoot the transient part all the way up here to the front. And now this part's really important, because now that we shifted everything up on this edit point, we've also moved the bleed up. So that's a problem. We don't want the bleed to happen before this kick. So we need to make sure then we just take a little slice from over here, and we're going to hit B, which is going to create an edit so we can move this. And we're going to slide this right up front. And so now we have removed the bleed, and we're going to move this back just like that. So now this is super important, because now because before, if the bleed comes before the actual kick drum, it's going to sound weird. So now we eliminate that bleed. So now when this hits, it's going to be right on time, and it's going to not flam, and it's going to be really tight. It's going to sound awesome. The drummer is going to be like, when he hears back his drum tracks, he's going to be like, what in the world? I didn't realize that I was such a great drummer. And you're going to say, yeah, I know. You're pretty phenomenal. And so this right here, you can see this, it's kind of sometimes difficult to notice. Kind of zoom this down a little bit. So this right here is all the bleed. It looks like the tom hit is right here. So we're going to go ahead again, and we're going to grab this tom hit. We're going to scoot it in. And now we are going to do the same thing with the bleed, because we want to make sure, again, that we're being responsible editors here. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. And now we're just going to go ahead, and you just got to make sure that when you're doing this, you're not introducing another transient somewhere, especially if stuff's really close together. So that looks like, now we can just scoot this over like this. So that right there looks like, so we have two tom hits, or two kick hits, and we have this tom hit and these two kick over snare, kick over tom, and now these are perfectly lined up, and we can scoot this back a little bit now too. So if you do this, you can see we just want to make sure that we're not ruining the edit we just made. So we just got to make sure we pull it up nice and tight. And now we look, and everything should be looking mighty fine. Now this is something I did want to check out right here, just really fast. So I want to know if this is, because it's kind of weird that the bleed would be in front of this. So I just wanted to take a look. Let's just, it doesn't bother me, so don't worry about it. This is where you use your ears. Sometimes if you try to do everything too visually, you can get yourself all wrapped up and making all kinds of stuff happen that you don't need to worry about. So just use your ears on this. So now that this is why we have everything separated too, because obviously when I'm making these kinds of edits where I'm shifting these and pulling back the curtain, I don't want to do that on the kicks, because the kicks need to stay exactly where they're at, because we are moving things to the kick. Kick is like and when you're drum editing, you gotta think of the kick as like your anchor. Kicks always take priority with the triggers, and kicks always are the things that you line everything else up to. So now that we've done this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new playlist, but I'm going to then select all my drums, so that way the playlist includes, so we're going to go new playlist, we're going to go ahead and copy this, this is just our edited selection. We're going to go ahead and just got texted, so just move that out of the way. Oops. And we're going to go ahead and do another duplicate. So what I'm going to show you here is with this duplicate right here, we're going to go ahead and scoot this over because this is going to be what we just did. This is the original drum track, and I'm going to flip back and forth to our edited drum track. So now that we have this, we're going to go ahead and highlight it, go back up to Event, Beat Detective, and this is where we're going to go fill and crossfade, and we're going to smooth. And this will add in all your crossfades so that way you don't have any crazy edits. And it's always good to go back and re-listen to everything because you want to make sure that your crossfades aren't interfering with transients or Beat Detective missed a spot or you accidentally had a double edit and you have pops. So here we go. That's your edited drum part. Sounded awesome to me. So here we go. So now let's listen to this one more time, and I'm going to flip back to the original, and I want you to really listen to especially the kick over snare, kick over tom, and hear the importance to it. So here we go. All right, and now we go to the unedited version. You can just kind of hear there's a sloppiness to this right here. Just listen. It's like, and so when we go back to the edited version, it sinks in there, and it just sounds so much more tight, and it sounds a lot less sloppy. And so that right there is just an example of how this can really benefit your just doing the kick over snare, kick over tom, and making sure you're erasing that bleed in front of it is really going to take your drum tracks to the next level. And it's a really, really important thing to do. This really is exactly how you would edit drums, and then you just do this the entire track. Different tracks are going to pose different problems, and so it's really important that you really just know what you're looking at when it comes to transients, making sure that you're not accidentally editing bleed and putting that in front into the, like, so say like over here when I was looking at this tom hit, you know, we want to make sure that you're not mistaking this for, you know, this right here is a transient, that this right here is the start of that transient. And sometimes it's going to be really difficult to see, so using your scrub tool and soloing stuff is going to be really important when you're not exactly sure where a transient lies. Yeah, so you just have to make sure that you're just being aware of all that kind of stuff. And always checking edit or trigger points, because Pro Tools a lot of times will not place them in the right spot, and then what's going to happen is you're going to have stuff all over the map, and it's just not going to sync. And this is really helpful too if you're going to start layering triggers onto your drums. You can be a little loosey-goosey if you want with drum editing, if you're not really going to think about triggers and anything else like that. But when you start layering triggers on top of your drums, it really helps to have your transient right at the start of the right on the grid, because when you're layering triggers, especially MIDI points, it's going to lay, and you quantize, it's going to lay right at the front of the grid, and it'll just make your life so much easier down the line. And it just, again, makes everything sound so much more sync and more tight. And fixing and being aware of just, you know, the phase relationship between microphones is going to keep the drums sounding natural and right. I mean, I think I'll put the click in there here, and just listen to this with the click. It's just right on the click, but you know, it still sounds natural. It doesn't sound robotic. It doesn't sound like you destroyed the vibe and the feel of the track. You're just making it so it sounds right. It sounds like the human ear is just it knows. We're so in, like, we, with all this modern music, we hear everything in sync, on beat, you know, and this is just will make people not hear the drums and like think about, oh, the performance. They're just gonna think this sounds right. It just sounds good. And so I really hope you got something out of this. I really, please Leave me a comment if this helped you or if this is going to help you. I think that this is something that, is not taught in its fullness, and I really hope this video is the end all be all, and you'll never have to think about how to use Pro Tools Beat Detective ever again, and this will, just be your system from here on out. And I just love to hear your thoughts. Please like this video. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos like this and really trying to help you understand and navigate your audio equipment, so as you as songwriters can just start recording more songs, not worrying about the technical, not worrying about how to do all this stuff, and really just, cut those corners quickly and just get music released out into the world that you're proud of, that you feel happy with, and you feel like you've done it in a professional manner. So again, my name is Brad Johnson, johnson.audio. It's so exciting to be able to share this with you finally. I hope you got something out of it, and I will see you on the next video.